So consciousness creates reality. Consciousness creates reality. What in the world is consciousness? We often define it as awareness of self. But we usually stop there, and there's far much more to the understanding and the deeper dive of consciousness. Consciousness, self-awareness. But that self-awareness is a self with a small s. Consciousness really invites us to move beyond just being aware of you individualized, but to become aware of self-awareness, which is self with a capital S. In other words, the totality of all of life. True consciousness, then, awareness, is the fact that you are a part of, you are absorbed in the self, which is self with a capital S. When one becomes aware or conscious of self-awareness, global, cosmic, universal awareness, that can and should begin to influence your decision-making. When you realize that everything verbally and mentally then that takes place within the activity of your own individuated mind affects the totality of self as a capital S, then wouldn't we heed and become more aware and more precise and more diligent with regards to the gatekeeping of thought and of word and of action? And you see, that kind of consciousness, not just this idea of, ooh, how do I improve myself, but understanding that consciousness doesn't end within the boundaries of your arms and legs and limbs and being, but that it reverberates vibrationally, frequency-wise, out into the totality of everything that is everything. That then is what dictates. That is then what creates or delivers to you the experience that you are having right now. The experience that you're having in life right now is my relationship with universe. What is the universe? Beyond description. But that is what self, capital S awareness is. When I began to understand that, I realized that this idea of the luxury of stewing in a grudge or the stewing in a negative thought or self-righteous indignation does not serve me, because what that does is it colors my reality. I realized then that this thing called consciousness, and when I become aware of it intellectually, that as it migrates down the 16 inches from head to heart, that is the longest distance and the most empowering distance that one individual can accomplish. That's the greatest journey of all, from head to heart, because it means that this idea of consciousness in my collaborative embeddedness with everything doesn't just remain as an idea. It becomes a calling card. It becomes missional. It becomes the very reason why you and I are here. Then it really does begin to affect my reality in a beautiful and a deliberate way. When I understand that the person next to me is not separate from me, but a part vibrationally of the totality of everything that is. When what I watch on the television isn't something distanced away from me and has nothing to do with my life, it has everything to do with my life. When I look at the way in which I think about another, or the memory bank by the way in which I view the way in which I was raised, or my family dynamic, or my opinions, I realize that all of those things are entangled with the self as a capital S. That's the consciousness that I'm talking about. That's the self-awareness that I'm talking about, and that is the self-awareness that does collaborate with you and I to outpicture for us exactly what it is that we are thinking. My world, your world, everything that exists within the day-to-day existence of this thing called individuated life is a product of my consciousness and my understanding of my involvement in all of that. And so as I get clearer and clearer about that, I start to realize how much of my world has been spent in myopic observation. And by myopic observation, I'm just talking about just looking at a fragment of something and thinking that the fragment of that thing is the totality of that thing. So yesterday, briefly, in my backyard, taking advantage of these glorious weekends, I'm repotting and putting some flowers in a pot. And I lose myself, just like I would as a child. I lost myself in looking at the actual petal of the flower and realizing that this is what most of us define as a flower. Just the bud, just the petal, just the little, the middle hub of whatever it is that all of the beautiful color is attached to. And we forget that there's much more to that than that. That the flower in and of itself cannot exist without the stem. And that on the stem then there are varying leaves. That if we traveled far enough down to the stem, we would get to a root system. And then that root system is dependent upon soil. And that long before this root system even emerged, that it was a part of a seed. And that this seed then was the product of other seeds and other flowers. And you start to see the continuance of all of these things. But when you and I say, oh, what a beautiful flower, we're not talking about all of that. We're talking about just that little part at the top. But that little part of the top would not be in existence without the rest of that. And so I wanted to experiment. How long could I, David, sustain an idea of self-awareness? Not individuated awareness, but self in terms of the totality of all of life. So I went into my kitchen and I got out my NutriBullet, which is the most incredible invention known to man. So if you don't know what a NutriBullet is, it's just a little handheld blender. And so I thought, who came up with this? And so I thought about whoever that individual was. I thought about what creativity is. I thought about the origin of an idea, and that somebody had that idea. That idea got patented, and it got manufactured. I thought about people on the manufacturing line. Who packaged the actual NutriBullet that I bought from Kohl's on my Kohl's charge card? How did it actually get to Kohl's? Was it a truck? How many NutriBullets were on the truck that got to Kohl's? I looked at the container and this plastic and I thought, wow, how did they come up with this particular idea? I thought about the motor that was in the blade. I turned to the refrigerator where I got out my organic greens, thinking, I'm hoping they're organic. It says they're organic. I don't know if they're organic or not. But somebody had to grow them under organic conditions. Who did that? Who picked it? Was it a human being or was it a machine that picked it? How did all of those leaves then get into this plastic container? Plastic again. Oh my God, who came up with the idea of this particular thing? I flipped it over. On the back was the little recycle symbol. And I thought, this wasn't the first incarnation of this plastic. It was recycled from something else. It will go into my recycle bin, which hopefully will be recycled into something else. You see where I'm going with this. And then I reached in and I got a handful of the greens and I put it into the NutriBullet. And then I got my protein powder and I looked, how many different varying proteins are there in this powder? There was whey, there was pea protein, never heard of pea protein before. And all the other antioxidants and the vitamins that were supposed to be in this powder. And I undid the cap and I went in, there was a little plastic scoop, plastic again. And I began to scoop that in, and then I went into the freezer and I got my mango chunks. And I unziplocked the plastic bag that were in the mango chunks. And I said, who picked this mango? Was it a person or was it a machine? And I got out the respective mango chunks and I put it into the the bullet. And then I put in a couple of other things and a piece of lemon and then all of these things. And I drank it. And I thought, oh my God, I'm drinking the handiwork of probably hundreds of people. Not just the inventor, but the person who had to drive the truck to Kohl's. Not just Kohl's, but whoever Mr. Cole is. The person who sold it to me. All of that is going into my system. That's self-awareness. Look at your paper. Look at your program. Hold out your program. This is a tree in your hand. That tree that this paper came from was brought to life by the sun. So that means that what you're actually holding in your hand is a piece of the sun. Can you read the words on this paper? Then you are connected to your first grade teacher. Do you even remember her name? But she's right there. Everybody goes, Mrs. So-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. But she's right here with you. The vibration of her or him, whoever that was, that taught you how to decipher lines on a piece of paper is here with you. And you start to see how much we forget. And you start to see how we are seduced by randomness. And we think that we are not a part of these things when everything is a part of everything. So what does that mean? That means until I become conscious of the fact that nothing is outside of me and everything is interconnected, then the way in which my level of consciousness will create my reality is determined about my relationship with capital S self. If I continue to look at life as an us and them situation, then I am completely missing the mark. And my reality will indicate that. But if I pause and I begin to take a deep breath and I understand that the theme of this month, which has been kinship with all life, has been the deeper dive of understanding exactly what consciousness means. In the first Sunday of this month, I gave to you the distinction between my humanity and my divinity. And that if I live in this state where I want my humanity to go away, or I hate my humanity, or I curse my humanity, then my divinity, that which is a part of the universe, has nothing to work with. That this is the thing my soul chose. That's the thing your soul chose. The height, the color, the condition. In order for the divinity to come and uniquely express in its individuation by means of you. If I don't like that equation, if I'm cursing the humanity, then the divinity has nothing to work with. Last week it was all about interconnectedness, very much like this week. I talked about the fact that the animal kingdom and the global kingdom and everything is a part of what I am. And vibrationally, there's nothing that I'm not connected to. I told you that wonderful story about how the elephants marched to the man who rescued them from the Iraq War. And they stood in homage for this man as his life passed and he took his last breath. How does the elephant know that the man who saved them just left? And you start to see that there's something far greater to life than you and I consider. And if you and I were to do those kinds of 5-minute exercises, that we would begin to have a glimpse of the power and the potency of not what that is, but what you are in that. Because I'm not separate from that. So my idea about everything is an invitation to be one of plenitude. Because what is the universe if nothing but a brilliant, perfect patterning that knows no limitation? And that's what you are. That's what I am. We are an extension of that which is a perfect patterning that knows no limitation. The word sin, I love that word. I didn't when I was a kid, but I love it now. Because I love the reframe of it, because in the Aramaic language, it simply means missing the mark. That's all that sin means. And our humanity misses the mark every day. But the beautiful thing about missing the mark is the ability to pivot back to truth. That's what turning the other cheek means. That when we get seduced by the illusion of just the compartmentalization and the idea of separateness, we have the ability to turn back to truth. As we miss the mark, we are realigned with the mark. And so we start to see the beauty and the interrelationship of the humanity and the divinity and this thing called consciousness. So I was sitting and I was thinking about this, and I'm an avid lover of the Tao Te Ching in Taoism. And so I hadn't gone to my big Tao book in a long time. It's this beautiful illustrated book. And I had forgotten yesterday that it had gotten wet. And that when it got wet, all the pages stuck together. So rather than cursing the book and all of its lumpy lasagna-like pages, I said, I am one with the wetness. And I very strategically took a knife and had to slice each page because they were all stuck together. And when I finally got to page 54, in the Tao Te Ching, there's 80 or 81 lessons in the Tao Te Ching. And lesson or verse number 54 is called "The Whole is Each Part." And Lao Tzu, who wrote this many, 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 many years ago, said, whatever is planted deeply is not easily uprooted. Whatever is embraced sincerely does not crave escape. Ever since we lost our intuition as our main guide in life, these virtues have had to be consciously cultivated to survive. Cultivate them in yourself, and they will be genuine. Cultivate them in your family, and they will surely flourish. Cultivate them in your community, and they will be long-lasting. Cultivate them in your country, and they will be widely propagated. Cultivate them in the world, and they will certainly become universal. In this way, you will know others by what you do yourself. You will know families by what you contribute as a family. And you will know the world by what you do as a planetary citizen. How do we know this? Because we know that each part is the whole, and the whole is in the part. And so what this verse in the Tao Te Ching is talking about is something called holistic consciousness. Holistic consciousness could be body, mind, spirit. One of the traps, I think, in humanity is that we forego two of them in order to secure one of them. Or we forego one of them in order to secure two of them. When holistic consciousness is telling us then that what is necessary is the unifying awareness, cultivation of awareness within all three simultaneously. Not forgoing mind just in order to improve the body. Not forgoing body just in order to improve the mind and to align with the soul nature of the cosmos. But to realize that every single part of that triune is necessary. And it is an invitation for you and I to expand beyond anything that we thought that we could expand into. That Tao Te Ching says holistic consciousness, that it cannot be done alone through just simple self-enlightenment with a capital S, or only by creating a more democratic political structure. We must transform and transcend at every level, as individuals, as families, as communities, and as a planetary village. The further implication here is that there is no sequential formula that will work. That is, individual enlightenment will not by itself lead to planetary community, nor will institutional change by itself lead to our transformation from selfish to integral personalities. All levels of transformation must evolute in tandem because we know that each part is the whole and the whole is in each part. What that's saying is that if I am a part of what? Self-awareness with a capital S, if I am a part of the cosmology, then I am to behave as the cosmos behaves. How does the cosmos behave? Does it go, oh, I don't really feel like turning on my axis today. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this. That the entire system of the cosmos, of the universe, the entire system of that works holistically, congruently together. It is a living universe. That means that you are a part of something that is livingness at your very core. When I forget that, when I think of the universe as probably just some dead kind of inconsequential thing, that I am so myopically focused on my life and how do I make my life better? How do I accumulate this? How do I go and advance and do this thing? I'm not thinking about the livingness of the universe. I'm just thinking about me. And so in the incongruency of that, my consciousness will create a reality where I will be accumulating things and I will not stop at any way in order to get those things. Because that lizard-like brain, undeveloped part of me that looks at other individuals as competition will begin to mow over any of that stuff in order to acquire and to keep and to withhold and to hoard that stuff in order for me to feel safe. That's all in the idea that I have no awareness nor do I care about a living universe. When people start to break and crack under that, and it seems that it happens as we age, as we mature, as we actually return to the innocence of what is. When I'm looking into the flower yesterday and I realize that there's more to the flower, and I've just simply passed that by and ignored it. When I'm drinking that smoothie and I realize the energy and the amount of stuff that went into that. When I'm holding this piece of paper and I realize that what I'm holding is a vibration of the sun. When I'm reading these words and I'm realizing that Mrs. Hawthorne is in here reading me, through me, as me. I forgot all that. But when I wake up to that, when you watch other people wake up to that, you start to see the way in which people go, I don't think I want to eat that anymore. I don't think I want to wear that anymore. You start to understand the conscious choices that people begin to make when they begin to shift into the awareness that it is a living universe. If I haven't had a conversation with the consumption of the animal that I'm about to consume, if I haven't created a conscious relationship with that, then I'm eating something unconsciously that isn't good for me. You start to see why people turn to veganism. You start to see why people begin to not wear certain things because they're having an alignment, they're having a reawakening to the idea that they are a part of everything. What that holds then for us is a very high level of accountability with regards to accusing other people, holding grudges, the discontent and the discord nature that I tend to want to live by. That's the same as me saying that I live in a dead universe. You live in a live, living organism. It's hard to fathom, isn't it? When you try to put measurement around the universe, but do you realize it's one organism? It's not multiple organisms. That the cosmos in and of itself, the universe in and of itself, is one active organism that you are part of. So how in the world did I come to the idea that there is an us and them, which I'm a part of the organism? And so the way in which I treat that would be the same way in which I would treat any appendage on my physical body. The way in which my mind would think and want to attack would be to attack something that is a part of me. That's why when Jesus said in the scripture, what you have done to the least of them, you have done unto me. Any kind of physical or mental retaliation or withhold or grudge, that thing is poison that is directed towards the self. Thus, the path of forgiveness is a path of grace. It is a path for the mighty. And the person who embarks upon that path realizes that it has nothing to do with an individual out there, because there is no individual out there. Isn't that insane? Imagine that kind of reawakening. And so I went to the next pocket of 5 minutes. This morning, I turn on the key in my car and I go, how does that work? How does that work? How does that thing charge something that makes a motor, that makes me move a stick, that makes this ton of steel move? On rubber, no doubt. Which goes back to the first person who invented the wheel. Who was that? Who was that said, ugh, me move this on wheel? And I think that's exactly how it went down. But that's what I'm doing. And then I'm driving on I-85 to get here, and I went, who was the first person who invented a path? A road? Who was that? And I am connected to that. And you could take that same 5 minutes and you could look at the fabric in your clothes. You could look at the glasses that we wear. You could look at the jewelry that we adorn ourselves with. You could look at the food that you consume. You could look at every single element of life and realize that it has a long lineage. And so do you. But here's the great news. The long lineage that you come from is the cosmos, is the universe, is intelligence. Do you not understand that? That what resides in you is not this myopic piece like the flower bud that we're trying to hairspray and shellac and groom and, shave and, ooh, my beard, I got to color my beard before church tomorrow because there's too much gray in it. That I'm so obsessed with this that I forget that this is like the piece of the flower that is attached to what? To everything. You're attached to everything. You cannot not be. And isn't it funny when we forget? We forget who we are. Maybe 15 minutes from now when you leave, you'll forget who you are until something else jolts you. But that's the idea of what consciousness is you go, oh my God, just like the prehistoric man who invented this thing as a part of the lineage of who I am, I'm a part of the lineage of that which is intelligence. How much are we using? How much of that are we owning? So listen to this brilliant excerpt that I found from a book called The Book of Mirdid by Mikhail Nemeh. And it says, so think as if every thought were to be etched in fire upon the sky for all and everything to see. For so in truth it is. So speak as if the world entire were but a single ear intent on hearing what you say. And so in truth, it is. So do as if your every deed were to recoil upon your own head. And so in truth, it is. So wish as if you were the wish. For so in truth, you are. your divine nature is so indescribable. Just imagine for a moment what rests inside of you. The potentiality that cares nothing about age, that cares nothing about history, that sits in wait simply for your personal permission. That is what you are. That is the consciousness that creates everything. And so it is. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.